Aleppo workshop meeting of April 12th, 2021. Welcome to our guests. Roll call, please.
President Jones?
Present.
Vice President Williams?
Present.
Commissioner Dara?
Present.
Commissioner Haluka?
Present.
Commissioner Richard? Not yet. Oh, Solicitor Stone. Sorry, Harlan.
Here, I'm present.
And Solicitor Stone, would you explain the format, please?
Right. So as we have for pretty much the past year, due to COVID-19 virus emergency management restrictions that have been imposed by the governor, Aleppo Township conducts its meetings in accordance with the applicable provisions of Act 15 and will do so until the governor's emergency disaster declaration is lifted. Act 15 allows the township to conduct meetings through the use of an authorized communications device like Zoom, which is what we use, provided it posts notice in advance on its website, which gives the date, the time, and the technology used and information for public participation. The township has followed this process religiously since we instituted and also have instituted it for tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to approve the March 15th, 2021 legislative meeting minutes?
I'm going to correct that because I typed it and that's a mistake. It was the March 16th minutes because it was a Tuesday meeting. So March 16th.
Stand as corrected. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And tonight we have an old friend and special guest, Katie Dobler, and she is a candidate for the Quaker Valley School Board. And Katie, the floor is yours.
Very much. I take no offense at you calling me old, but I am certainly older than the last time I saw you. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to say hello to my former neighbors and Aleppo residents. It's been a while since I've seen everybody, but as noted, I am running again this year for Region 3 of Quaker Valley School Board. So this would be my second term if I do win again. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to say hi, reintroduce myself to those of you I haven't talked to in a while, or for those of you who are new to me, and just let you know that I can be found at katiedobler@gmail.com or voteforkatie@gmail.com. I have a website, voteforkatie.com, and a Facebook page. That is Vote for Catherine, because Vote for Katie was taken. I also manage a Facebook group that is called the QV School Board Updates. And I know there's a lot going on in our district, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. I don't want to take time from your agenda. I'm sure you've got a lot to cover tonight, but that Facebook group is a great place to stay up to date on the myriad things that are going on inside the district. I know the tendency is when it comes time for elections, we have been kind of focused the conversation around the high school, but there are a number of things that are also happening. So if you are a Facebook person and you look for the group QV School Board Updates, I try and keep the community up to date on the things that are happening when we have meetings, decisions that are made that kind of cross the whole gambit of all the things that we talk about. So I thank you for giving me a few minutes on your agenda today. And if anybody does have questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I'm happy to listen as well.
Any questions?
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We thank you for serving.
And same to you. We definitely miss our friends in Aleppo.
Give your husband a big hug.
I certainly will.
Okay, next on the agenda, the 79 North Parcel B land development, migrant glass presentation and sewer module. Gwen, any further introduction?
I'm Mike Gillette from Gateway Engineers is the engineer for the project, and he'll be able to present the new plans to the board.
Good evening, members of the board. Gwen, do we have two items on the agenda? Do you want me to present both separate, the sewage planning and then the full plan, or do you just want me to wrap it all into one?
You can wrap it all into one because they're going to vote next week and it'll be 2 separate motions next week.
Okay. Do I have the ability to share my screen here? Yes, I do. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the plans here. Again, introduction to me, I'm Mike Gillette. I'm with Gateway Engineers. We're the consulting engineer for the applicant, who is the Migrant Living Trust. As you guys recall, we were in here early last year, actually late last year, end of the year, to get a previous site plan approved through 79 North landowners. Since then, we've had a little bit of new development. So what we're pitching to you guys today, the adjacent tenant right now, this is parcel B, zone C2, commercial in the 79 North Industrial Park along Deer Run Road, pretty close to the office. What we're proposing is Migrant Glass currently occupies, they lease off of 79 North, the industrial park, the adjacent site, and they're looking to expand. So this site proposes a 100,000 square foot office warehouse facility. It's going to be approximately 5,600 square foot of office and 94,400 square foot of warehouse. It's going to be 2 tenants, so approximately 70% of the office warehouse will be occupied by Migrant Glass, and that's going to be the left side of the page. You know, they'll have all of their employee parking on this side, and they'll split 70% of the loading. And then the right-hand side will be fit out for a future tenant, approximately 30% of the remaining space. So as you guys previously recall, back in the winter, this site was approved just for just a spec building. 79 North, the industrial park, wasn't sure who was going to be there yet, but they wanted to market it for someone. So we actually went through, it was a smaller facility. It's approximately 60,000 square feet, but it was a lot more office, less warehouse, just to increase that flexibility of the site. So now we're coming in a larger facility, but it's actually going to require less parking and less loading because there's going to be less employees because of the fewer office space comparative to the increased warehouse. So what we are proposing here, based off of zoning, we need approximately 114 parking stalls. We're showing exactly 114 on the site to meet zoning. We previously had 121 for the smaller site as a minimum, just to put that in perspective as to how much less office we're actually proposing this time. Migrant Glass actually only plans to have a maximum of 12 tenants on peak hour shift. So we're actually showing this site to be overparked. One of the things I mentioned in the planning commission meeting is we have a few stalls here that are actually meant to be used as drive-in facilities, but for the sake of future expansion, if Migrant were ever to leave the site, they would be able to be striped to meet the zoning requirements of anyone that's going to buy the property or lease the property, based off of the office warehouse that we're proposing. I'll open it up to questions if anyone has any questions or comments on that after I'm done talking, but just wanted to draw that attention. Also, we're showing loading in the front of the facility now. If you guys recall, we had the previous layout had parking all in the front. The building was smaller, but it was moved to the center of the pad, and we had loading in the back to keep them separated. I know one of the big concerns last time we came through the commissioners was that a lot of the adjacent residents to the north and I guess that's the north, are residential. It's all zone residential. And I know a lot of them were concerned with not only noise, but lighting. So now we're moving everything to the front of the site, which is all adjacent to the industrial park. We're bringing the noise and the light disturbance, further away from those residents. So, we hope to make their concerns a little bit less and satisfy that in a little better manner. And then we are here in front of you guys again, asking for the same modification that we requested previously. that modification is for grading within 3 feet of the property line. As you can see, this site, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the site, but there's actually a portion of the existing pavement that Migrant currently occupies that actually goes onto our proposed developed site. So we will have to remove a portion of that parking to make our site work, and in turn, we're going to be planting some trees here. We also found out in our due diligence that there was a sanitary force main that runs along the back slope of our property. We'll be relocating a portion of that. I could show you guys on this plan. So this sewer line was actually installed a little bit further into our site than what the record drawing showed. As part of our due diligence, we met with the sewer authority and identified that early on. And we've been working with them since to develop a relocation plan, as you guys can see here. But that's one of our site constraints. That's why our site's a little bit close to the property line. We're kind of set as to, where the existing property line is. On the east, and then also in the rear, we've got some steep slopes that we want to protect, and then obviously the sewer line to the west. So that was some of our site constraints, and that's kind of justification as to why we're requesting the modification that was previously approved. I mentioned the sewer relocation. We did previously receive an MPDS permit for the original approved site, so we are going through the modification of that currently. Received their comments and don't have any issues addressing all of those this week. We did receive HRG's staff letter. We don't have any issues addressing any of their comments. They're pretty minor in nature. And then, other than that, that's pretty much it. Does anyone have, I guess, any questions as far as the plans I presented are concerned?
The one comment I have is thank you for considering the lighting and noise factor.
No problem. Anytime we can further address any resident complaints, we'll have at it. Absolutely.
Any questions for Mike? Must have been a good presentation.
Hey, Gwen.
Thanks, George.
Oh, I see it. Okay. I was just gonna point out that the Planning Commission is recommending approval subject to a list of standard conditions.
Yes, well, Harlan, I'll work with you to get the motion for next week to make sure that we incorporate all the conditions again in the motion that the.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And then, Mike, did you have anything else about the sewer module, or is that something else you need to explain, or can that just be the motion to adopt the resolution next week as part of this?
Yeah, it goes hand in hand with what we, what we're proposing here. It's just a planning module for the sewage that will be, required for this type of site fit out. So we've already checked with all the authorities of their capacity downstream and haven't seen any issues, and we've talked to the DEP about it. So, we're moving that along. And I did want to mention one other thing that I didn't talk about. This came up in the Planning Commission meeting, was only having access to 3 portions of the building, 3 sides of the building, and not in the rear. We have been in coordination with the fire chief. Bill has been very helpful through this process, and he's good with this current layout, but we'll await his formal letter on that. That was obviously something that we wanted to consider. Left-hand side of the site, we did provide enough room for a fire truck to turn around. So that was another thing that, we considered in our site design. And then the final thing I wanted to mention, just, while I was on the call, Jeremy Jensen is the tenant rep. So he's been super helpful sitting in on this call. I don't think there's any questions for him, but just wanted to introduce him, while I'm on.
Okay, well, both Mike and Jeremy, it's our standard procedure to listen to the presentation, wait a week to vote at our legislative meeting. That gives the commissioners time to review the planning and the HRG review. but good presentation. And does anybody else have any questions for either Jeremy or Mike?
Do not.
Well
Thank you.
done. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys. I
very
really appreciate
much.
the time.
Yep, it's been a pleasure working with your team.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Old business, Gwen, glass dumpster site commitment.
Last month, the commissioners voted to approve participation and funding for our share of the glass recycling dumpster project for this in the Quaker Valley Cog this summer. And I just wanted to confirm that the board is okay with hosting a site one of the weeks here in the municipal parking lot. So we would put the glass dumpster outside in the parking lot, kind of, if you're looking out my window on the left. And it does not have to be manned or staffed 24 hours. It's a large dumpster provided by, I think Cap Glass probably, but through PRC. People can drop off different kinds of glass bottles, no windows or anything like that. And there'll be acceptable things posted on the side of the bin with doors, and then they'll come and haul it away at the end of I think it's a 5-day period. So I just wanted to confirm that the board is okay with us hosting it here in our municipal parking lot one week. We're working on the schedule date, so I don't have the dates yet, but when I do, we'll publicize it. But
Gwen,
Is it
you'll make a
okay
lot
with-
of friends doing that. I've had 5 or 6 different people ask me what our plans are for glass recycling, and I keep assuring them that we are doing something. So having it up here will make a lot of friends.
yeah, there'll be 6 locations throughout the Quaker Valley Cog area, but we're very central in the Cog, so ours would be an easily accessible site. So is it okay if we commit to the Cog that we can host it here in the parking lot for a week?
Okay with me.
I'm in
Great.
favor.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Once we get the dates of all 6 events, we're going to publicize them as a group so people can have it, the schedule for the summer and the fall, and they can, save accordingly.
Thank you, Gwen. I don't think anything more formal than that's required.
I'm comfortable with that.
New business, document destruction resolution.
So if we want to get rid of old records, there's a process. There's a Pennsylvania historical document commission or something that I'm not getting the right names right now. Pennsylvania Municipal Records Manual. And we have to follow those procedures in that manual before we're able to destroy old financial records or anything like that. So what you have in your packet is the authorizing resolution, and then the second page is Exhibit A, which is all the list of all the documents that are currently scheduled to be destroyed in this round. So there's a whole bunch of resolutions and things on the agenda. We'll vote on all of them next week, but this is the list of the old documents that have been checked against the records manual and are allowed to be destroyed at this point.
Any questions for Gwen? Hazard mitigation plan adoption resolution.
Judy, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You're muted, Judy.
All right.
Got it. Sorry about that. The hazard mitigation is what we do annually. We do it in a smaller level. We look at our township, et cetera, for hazards and look at what we can do to mitigate it. The county every 5 years is required to submit to the state a broad hazard mitigation, which brings in all of the townships, all the municipalities, all of the little everythings in Allegheny County, has all of their hazard mitigation paperwork put together. They look at it globally as a county. And then we have actually a choice. We can develop our own hazard mitigation plan, or we can adopt the county plan and have ours put in as a part of that. I don't know of any municipality that chooses to go through the work that it takes to write their own. And so the county gets theirs accepted on a state level. Once it's accepted on a state level, they require that each municipality have a resolution accepting that mitigation plan, and then it's taken again to the state for final approval. So this is our agreement to participate in the countywide hazard mitigation plan. So that's the resolution that you have before you.
By adopting this, it makes us eligible for certain disaster funds if we were to have a disaster that involved FEMA money. So, and we adopted it 5 years ago. So
We either have to adopt this or write our own in order to be eligible for FEMA funding in the case of a disaster. Like if I would have needed funding, for example, to assist Masonic or to assist whatever with COVID, we would have been eligible for that funding plan. It would have been difficult had we not been part of it.
Any further questions for Judy? Thank you, Judy and Gwen. Quaker Valley COG Refuse Recycling Bid Commitment Resolution.
So this is a resolution that has been requested by the COG as part of the trash and recycling contract negotiations. What it basically does is commits the township to participate in the process, agrees to pay the $200 upfront participation fee to cover the process of the bids and the advertising and things like that. And it says that it does not require us to select any recycling options. And it says that we intend to purchase trash collection services from the lowest responsible bidder. What they're trying to do is avoid having different municipalities get in on the bid of the contract and then perhaps back out at the end, so that what we're presenting to the bidder might not be an accurate house count for what they're trying to bid. So by the different municipalities participating in this contract, signing this resolution, it's a commitment to the potential bidders that we are in for this contract, and we intend to follow this process.
Harlan, did you review the document?
I did, and I actually made a few small edits, and at this point, it looks satisfactory.
We know who's going to be solicited for the bid.
Couldn't hear you, Dan.
Do we know who's going to be solicited to bid?
The main players in the area are Waste Management. Vogel sometimes participates, Republic. Those are the ones that have participated in the past. We do not yet have a bid, document prepared to give to other people. We don't have the RFP ready yet. We've gone through this, every 5 years for a bunch of years, and Waste Management has been the successful bidder the last couple rounds.
Right.
Anything further on the COG Waste Management resolution? Alderman Northway Christian Community Developers Agreement Addendum. Gwen?
That's a Harlan.
Oh, Harlan.
You were doing so well, Gwen.
No. Tag.
Then a tough one comes up and you punt.
Get right to you.
All right. Well, so this has a history going back to the development for Northway Christian Community Church. Alderman owns the property, and Northway is the tenant. They came in initially for some approvals, and they wanted a variance at some point dealing with the parking requirements, which the zoning hearing board granted them. One of the conditions, like we always do, was a developer's agreement. And in that developer's agreement, we agreed they agreed, I should say, that they would perform the paving for the parking lot within a certain period of time. And there was also an amendment shortly after the original was done. The amendment just recodified the idea that we weren't going to make them do all of the paving of the parking lot up front, because they weren't going to be using the entire church space at the beginning. And as they phased in, we were going to allow them to phase in the paving rather than having to pay for it all at one time when they weren't using it. Well, as it turns out, and due to COVID, I think primarily, but just maybe general conditions, it turns out that they don't have as many people using the building as they originally thought. And so they went back to the zoning hearing board, asked for an additional variance, which would allow them to remove the condition that they put in all of the parking that they had originally requested. And also because of that, and because they got that variance, they no longer needed the extra time to do all the paving. So this agreement is really, I guess this is a long-winded explanation for simply lifting the requirement that they perform all of the parking within a year of the development. Because, and if they do decide that they're going to complete the use of the space, they of course will have to come back in and get approval for the additional parking. This simply takes the additional parking extension out of the developer's agreement. I know that's confusing, but it's
Got it.
Got it.
Any questions for Harlan? I think it's pretty straightforward. Police contract renewal, I can say in advance, the only change that I identified was price, and I think that's the only change they said would be in the agreement. Looks to be 2 or 3% for a number of years. Harlan, have you had a chance to review it?
I did, and I've seen this contract several times, and it's basically, it's not basically, it is, it's a renewal of what you've had before. The only thing that I want to add, I noticed again that it says that it can be adopted by resolution, and in the ones that I've done before, it's always been done by ordinance, not by resolution. I think you need an ordinance to adopt this, and I don't think you can do it by resolution. Even if it had been done by resolution in the past, I think that's incorrect.
I think it was done by intergovernmental cooperation agreement ordinances in the past.
Yeah.
So we have, the prior ordinances as a model also.
Okay, good.
I have a
was my
question
own-
that was brought
Yes,
to me by public input that I promised to ask and get clarified. Was there ever a look at other police services before we decided to renew this contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Gwen, do you want to comment on that at all?
The last time this was up for renewal 3 years ago, other police departments in the area were contacted to see if they would be interested in putting in a bid for the services as well, as just a way to evaluate, what Ohio Township offers in relation to other people. And Ohio Township, their bid was a better price for the level of service that was being sought.
Thank you, Gwen.
Gwen, do you feel any need to recontact some of the other police forces?
I don't. I will say that the feedback that I've gotten here has always been positive about Ohio Township, that they do come when called and respond to everything, and the officers are courteous and attentive. So I've really only gotten positive feedback from residents about their services.
I second that, Gwen.
Harlan, is there a bid obligation, a legal obligation?
No, this is service. This is professional services. So I don't think there's any competitive bidding required.
Well, I agree. I think we've been incredibly fortunate. I think it's a wonderful contract. I think it's a reasonable contract. We can all consider that before next week's meeting.
And again, I brought that up as clarification for a question that was asked to me. That's not my reflection. I also support Ohio Township wholeheartedly. I just wanted to bring that out publicly to get it clarified.
No, it's a good question.
And since it will be adopted by ordinance, it will be on the May agenda because we need time to get the ordinance together and advertise it. So it would be, the earliest it would be on the May agenda for adoption. And I have a message from the Ohio Township manager, and they intend to, if all goes well, they would be adopting their side of it in May as well.
Gwen, if you need a model ordinance, I can get you one. If you already have one, you want to send it to me.
I'll just modify the current one and send it to you for review.
Great.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the police contract renewal? The tax collector stipend increase. This is pretty simple. In the past, the treasurer tax collector's salary has been the same as the commissioners, and our resolution did not address that. And Gwen and I, in simple conversation, kind of agree that we should bring the tax collector treasurer's salary up to the same as the commissioners. Any questions about that?
But that was brought up in the discussion that we had, the short discussion. So I think that everybody's been well informed that we intended to have the stipend increased to the same level as the commissioners.
Good. Any further comment? I think we're very fortunate. I think our current tax collector does a wonderful job, and I see that he's on the ballot again. So I hope we're fortunate enough to have him again. Road weight limit study proposal, Gwen.
That is a proposal that we received from HRG. We had some community and planning commission input about studying certain roads in certain neighborhoods to protect them against excessive weight and to set in guidelines for what trucks would be able to do and the amount of weight and how we would recover any damages for any weight damage to the road. HRG gave a limited proposal. We asked them to go back and do to flesh out the proposal a little more, including some core studies of the roads in question. And they came back with an amended proposal. And what this would do is study the roads, study the weight limits, and study the roads themselves in the Weber Road neighborhood. It's Weber Road, Ferndale Avenue, Weber Road Extension, and Sycamore Road Extension. And do some testing on those roads to see what kinds of weights they can handle. This proposal would be for HRG to do that study. Then they would, after the study, they would come back to us with recommendations for how to address any concerns that they have. So this proposal is just for the study.
Do we now have quotes on two different scopes, Gwen?
We do. I don't think I have the old one here though, but I think it was I want to say like $2,000 difference between the old and the new.
And Harlan, I think you recall we discussed this with the chief. We certainly don't want to do a study that is inadequate for enforcement of the weight limit. But it hasn't been real clear to me as to what extent we have to go in terms of the scope of the study. So I think that needs to be reviewed a little bit before we make a decision, Gwen. We don't want to do more or less than we need to.
Harlan, is that something that we could talk about this week to have this on the agenda for next week, or do you want to wait a month, George? Harlan and George.
I think if we can review it in a week, great, but we're in no rush.
Okay.
I'm available, and I can do it in a week. I could do it in longer than a week. It doesn't matter to me.
I think, George, it sounds like the question is basically, is this study, Harlan, can you compare this proposal for a study to the requirements for enactment and then see if this meets all the things we would need to do in order to make it enforceable?
Yeah. It might be tough because I'm going to have to review the PennDOT regs. So it might be tough getting it for next week. So
No, May is fine. May is fine.
I'll put it in for May.
Any further discussion about the weight limit study? Sale of township personal property resolution. Gwen?
So the first class township code allows the board to authorize a manager or a staff member to sell certain property underneath a certain dollar amount. So that if somebody came along and I wanted to sell this old filing cabinet for $50, we wouldn't have to wait to go through board approval for all those kinds of small sales. We don't have the resolution authorizing that in place because I guess it never came up before. But we were approached. We have some old landscaping and garden grass cutting equipment that we'd like to get rid of. We put it on municipal bid which is a municipal bidding site that covers the bidding requirements. It didn't sell, and we have some local people who have just made, come in and made us some small offers on some of the equipment. And this resolution would authorize the township to sell this equipment or any kind of small property without having to go through full board approval every time. So this would just be the resolution would just be setting up the process. And then each time it happened, I would think I would probably shoot out an email or something just to let you know that we've had an offer on something small. We're not in the habit of selling off our stuff. So it's not really a concern that we're going to suddenly strip the place. So if you're comfortable putting this resolution in place, it would just authorize us to treat some of these smaller sales as an administrative process.
I see no reason why we shouldn't be positive toward it. But one thing I'd like to know is what's the upper level of the value of the equipment to be disposed?
$2,000.
Okay.
So this is a procedure where you don't have to go to a public auction and we don't have to require full board approval for personal property in the amount of anything less than $2,000. Of course,
okay, thank you.
Over $2,000 requires a public auction or closed bids.
And in Harlan, the one thing that I did have some concern about is family members of employees, close friends of employees would obviously have access to this information more than the general public. Is that a problem?
I don't think so. I'm gonna have to think about that, because the one thing ethically under the Ethics Act that you can't do is you can't use information that you obtain in your capacity as public officials for your own pecuniary gain or that of an immediate family member, in this case being a sibling, a child, or a spouse. So the answer, George, I'll look at it a little more closely before next week, but off the top of my head that could be a problem.
Could it be solved by adding another, clause in this resolution that says that anytime, if anyone who's interested in purchasing a piece of property, and something is in any way affiliated with the township, that we do bring those items to the board for approval so that it's a public process?
There's probably language that I can use in that resolution that would solve the problem that George has pointed out.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a workaround for, the resolution itself is not defective. It just needs to address that situation.
Yeah, it could be a policy thing where we post it publicly on the website and things like that. So we could develop maybe a policy that sits alongside this resolution.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any?
Harlan, I would think that
no sound. Dave, we're getting a no sound.
The law allows us to adopt a resolution saying we can sell certain property below a certain value without going through the normal process. Where the normal process does include the solicitation of bids and publicity. Why wouldn't that law, if you're going to the exception for the cheap stuff, why would you have to put it out there for public knowledge?
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan, but I'm thinking of a situation where, so if we don't, let's say there's a contract, a construction, a road contract or a construction contract, it's under 20,000. We don't have to publicly bid it, but you still couldn't have an interest financially in the awarding of that contract. So it's kind of a separate analysis. Okay. And I will look at it one way or another. We'll resolve it and we'll have it in front of you for next week.
Any additional comment?
Well, I mean, along those lines too, is just how would someone know something's, available unless they're in the vicinity or know someone in the vicinity. So, someone hearing about us selling something that maybe they would like or need, and now if it does go to someone who's possibly related, there should be a step, I guess. I know we had it on another website, but residents aren't going to that website probably necessarily to find that. So, but I think whatever Harlan's going for is
What if we just said, Gwen, again, just thinking out loud, because you sort of caught me off guard, George. What if we said that anything that falls within the under $2,000, we would post on our website. Again, we wouldn't go to full advertising, we wouldn't go to auction, but we would post that information on our website as a
For a
policy.
determined amount of time or something, just, for a week or whatever, because you don't want it to become so crazy that, Gwen's managing postings on websites and how long's it been up, or, did it get put on the website because somebody wants, the $5 rake. I mean, we don't want it to become so work intensive that it's just not worth, the $200 that you get for the file cabinet or whatever either.
I think we could play with it, Harlan, this week and try to figure out if this, like the resolution stands alone, then we could develop a sale that a policy in part of our township policies that references the resolution authorizing this. And then all of us develop a policy that addresses all of those concerns.
Well, we can do that, because all the code requires is that we establish a procedure, and the code itself doesn't really get into the detail that we're talking about with a conflict. So but I like the idea of, as part of the procedure to address George's concerns, that we'll post it on our website for a certain period of time and make that a part of the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? Harlan, could I impose upon you to give a description of the ALOM summer conference? Or let the commissioners know?
Yeah, I don't know much about the ALOM conference. I, of course, am an advisor and solicitor to the fall conference. I'm usually just a customer like you at the ALOM conference. So I honestly, other than the fact that it's happening in June this year, I don't know the exact dates, but again, that's something I can get to Gwen and we can have it circulated.
And do you think there'll be a fall conference as well?
There will be. I was on a conference call. I was actually at a Zoom dinner, where we planned the fall conference. There will definitely be a fall conference in Erie.
So for any commissioners that are interested, Gwen has information on the proposed summer conference, and I'm sure soon we'll have information on the fall conference.
Correct. The summer conference, which used to be the spring conference, which is the ALOM conference, will be at Seven Springs, where they've always had it. And the fall conference will be held at the Sheridan on the Lake in Erie.
Okay, I'll do it. What the heck is an ALOM conference? Summer, fall, spring, or winter? What is it?
The Allegheny League of Municipalities. It's a group of boroughs, townships, and public officials, and appointed and elected. So it includes managers as well. And it's just it's a conference. I think we call it it used to be a convention, but then there were tax issues and we became a conference, because we had to add a educational component. And actually the programming, George, you've been to a number of them. Gwen, you have. Art, you have. The programming is really, before COVID anyway, I can attest, is excellent. It has been excellent. And, both conferences have had really good educational programs. strong educational programs. Gwen, wouldn't you say?
I would. I mean, I don't go for the hospitality rooms. I go for the education conferences. So, the classes. I like to sit in class all day and learn different things about municipal government that I didn't know before.
And George, wouldn't you say it's good? I always like it, and I like to encourage people to go to it because you learn that you're not alone. I mean, that the issues that we deal with are the same issues that the city of Pittsburgh deals with, or that a smaller municipality, and it gives you a chance to talk informally with your peers from other municipalities. And sometimes it's a really good resource for quick answers where some manager from another municipality has had an issue and dealt with it, and you can just kind of corner them in the hallway or over a drink in the lounge and get a good background on something that you otherwise might not have known about. So it's good for networking, but it's good for education, and it's also good for relaxing if you like to hit the bar.
Well, quite frankly, Harlan, the first time that I attended, I was a little reluctant, and at the commissioner's own expense, you can allow your spouse to attend as well. My wife attended several of the sessions and said, if they're all this good, she's going to attend them all the next year. And I'm pretty certain that the value gained is significantly greater than the cost.
I would agree. Absolutely agree.
Thanks, Art.
Any other new business? Any citizens? Pardon me?
Nope, not this time.
Oh, God, it's.
We answered all their questions. They don't have any.
There's no executive session required?
Nope.
Then meeting adjourned.